This story happened a few years ago. It was, I was living in Marlboro at the time, and my son was living at a residential home for autistic people in Boston itself. So one weekend, I had decided I would take him on a tour of Boston so he could see, the things he was missing, because he lived up on a residential street, nice neighborhood and everything, but there's lots of things to see in Boston. So I've decided I'm going to take him down, and we're going through Chinatown, and we went on the Freedom Walk and everything. And I just wanted to tell you the most unbelievable story. You would not believe what happened. We're going down the street now. My son was not verbal. He had very limited speech. And so I'm walking and I'm looking at all the sights and things, and all of a sudden he's not with me. And I'm like, where did he go? And I see him, and he's standing in front of a window. And his mouth is hanging open. His eyes look like they were about ready to pop out of his head. So I was like, what on earth is he doing? So I go back, and I'm like, what's going on, right? And I look, and this Asian man, and he's picking up live chickens by the neck, literally chopping the heads off and throwing their bodies into look like a washing machine wringer, and you could see like all the feathers going away, and he'd pick it up out of it and he'd hang it up on a hanger, and he did it so fast it was like boom, boom, boom. Grab the chicken, clip it off, stick it in this ringer, and pull it back up, and he'd hang it up. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, to say the least, my son was very traumatized. I was a little shocked myself, and we went on our merry way and continued our walk through the Freedom Trail. But I just thought that was a short, unbelievable story. My next story is of a cousin of mine who went to Boston and had a very unbelievable story. Now, at the time, he was living in Chicopee, Massachusetts, which is roughly 90 miles from Boston. My daughter at the time was living in Montague, which is about 95 miles from Boston. A little bit different way to going, but you both end up taking about 2 hours to get there. So they were going to a Red Sox game. No communication between the two of them. They weren't particularly close, but they were first cousins. And she was outside with her friend at a Boston Red Sox game, waiting to go into the entranceway. And who did she run into but her cousin Brian? This is like 50,000 people going into the stadium. They're 100 miles from home. Neither one of them are huge Red Sox fans. And they meet at the gate of the Boston Red Sox. That is like an unbelievable story. But it is true. It happened in the early 2000s. And that's a unique story. Thank you. The next story is a very unique story that I've always found very fascinating. We had moved from the town of Montague to the city of Marlborough, which was quite a shock to us. It was going from a town of about 8,000 to a town of 50,000, much larger than we were used to. And I had enrolled my daughter in the school where she would go on to meet a girl. Her name was Donna, and they became very close friends. As time went by, I realized that a boy named Bruce, and Donna were inseparable. I mean, really inseparable. I had become interested in the fact that my uncle, many years ago, had lived in Marlborough, had driven the, I guess it was a bus at the time. It may not have been a bus. It was a trolley, I think, between Marlborough and Framingham. That was what he did. And he had met my aunt, and through a messy divorce, my aunt and him got married. And time's gone by. We're gonna never mind. But the long and short of it is that there was a lot of hatred between the two families, because in the 1940s, divorce was not acceptable. He went on to live in Florida. I didn't know him very well, but I did know him somewhat. And so I was very interested. So I started looking up the family name. The family name was something very simple. It was Stone, a well-known name, not extraordinary. So I was surprised to find that my daughter's best friend, Bruce, his last name was Stone. Through some finagling, I found out that he was the grandson of my uncle. So that meant that my daughter and him, by marriage, were related, like third cousins or whatever. I always said that was shocked. So one day, I was talking to Donna's mother, and I said, I told her about my uncle, my great uncle, who had worked in Marlborough, and his name was Stone, and he had driven the trolley or whatever between Marlborough and Framingham. And she goes, I knew him very well. And I said, you did? She says, yes. She said, he was my father's best friend. Now that meant that three people who had no way of knowing each other had somehow or another all come together in a town of 50,000, ending up in the same class and being inseparable friends. I found that very odd. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the stories.